My name is Karen, and this is the story of how a spoiled entrepreneur tried to scapegoat me for his own incompetence, and how I dismantled everything he built. I still remember the day I walked into Venture Loft co-working space for the first time, 5 years ago. The building was a converted warehouse in the tech district, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. I wasn't there as a tenant. I was there as the owner. Well, co-owner. My business partner Elena and I had purchased the property and transformed it into a premium co-working facility. But here's what most tenants didn't understand. Elena handled the real estate side, the leases, the physical space. I handled something far more valuable in today's world, the entire digital infrastructure. See, Venture Loft wasn't just office space. We offered what we called plug-and-play business solutions. High-speed dedicated fiber internet, cloud server hosting, cybersecurity monitoring, automated backup systems, VoIP phone systems, even specialized equipment like high-capacity 3D printers and laser cutters in our makerspace. Companies could walk in with just their laptops and immediately operate at enterprise level. But here's the critical detail that would later become the center of everything. These services weren't included in the base lease. They were separate contracts. With me. My company, Morrison Tech Solutions, owned and operated every piece of that infrastructure independently. The lease gave tenants 4 walls and utilities. Everything else, that was mine. I had spent 3 years building that system. Every cable I had personally mapped. Every server I had configured. Every security protocol I had designed. This wasn't some plug-and-play setup I'd bought off the shelf. This was custom, optimized, and mine. Most tenants understood this arrangement perfectly. They signed their infrastructure contracts, paid their monthly fees, and we all got along fine. The system worked beautifully, reliable, fast, secure. I took pride in the fact that in 5 years, we'd had less than 4 hours of total downtime. Then Trevor Walsh moved in. Trevor was 26 years old, fresh off a small acquisition by a tech company, and absolutely convinced he was the next Steve Jobs. He'd sold a social media analytics app for $2 million, not a bad exit, but hardly unicorn territory. Still, he acted like he'd invented the iPhone. His new company was called Momentum Labs, and his pitch was typical Silicon Valley word salad. We're disrupting the productivity space with AI-driven workflow optimization and seamless cross-platform integration. Translation: they were building project management software. Again. But Trevor had money now, and he had backing from some angel investors who'd been impressed by his first exit. He leased the entire 3rd floor of Venture Loft, our premium suite, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city and space for 30 employees. The first meeting about his infrastructure needs should have been a red flag. So you'll handle all the tech stuff? Trevor asked, barely looking up from his phone. We were in the conference room, reviewing his requirements. Elena was there too, going over the lease terms. I'll provide infrastructure services based on your needs, I explained. You'll need our platinum package for the bandwidth requirements you're describing. That includes dedicated fiber, managed cloud hosting, redundant backup systems, and 24/7 monitoring. Yeah, whatever. Just make it work. He signed the contract without reading it. I watched him scrawl his signature, barely pausing. My developer team will handle the actual tech. You're just keeping the lights on, basically. I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept my expression neutral. The infrastructure is what allows your tech to function. Think of me as... Look, Karen, he interrupted, finally making eye contact. No offense, but I've built and sold a tech company. I know how this stuff works. You're basically the IT person. I just need you to make sure the Wi-Fi doesn't go down. My team will handle the real work. Elena shot me a warning glance. We'd dealt with difficult tenants before, but Trevor's dismissive attitude was something else. Just so we're clear, I said slowly, the services I provide are contracted separately from your lease. I'm not your employee. I'm an independent contractor providing critical infrastructure that your business depends on. The terms are all outlined in this document. Trevor waved his hand. Got it. You're a vendor. Cool. He stood up. Listen, I've got a call with investors. Just get everything set up by Monday. We're moving fast. He left. Elena and I sat in silence for a moment. I don't like him, I said. His money spends, Elena replied. And we need a tenant for the 3rd floor. Just keep it professional. So I did. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked 60-hour weeks getting Trevor's infrastructure ready. I configured his cloud server environment. I set up secure VPN access. I deployed monitoring systems. I created user accounts for his growing team. I even stayed until midnight on Sunday before their Monday launch to ensure everything was perfect. Monday morning, Trevor didn't even acknowledge the work. He just started complaining that the conference room TV wasn't connecting to his laptop easily enough. The warning signs multiplied quickly. Trevor would call me at all hours, weekends, evenings, once at 2 in the morning, demanding immediate help with emergencies that turned out to be his team not knowing how to use basic software. He'd CC me on angry emails about problems that had nothing to do with infrastructure, like his designer's computer running slowly because it was 6 years old. Karen needs to fix this ASAP, he'd write, as if I could magically upgrade someone's personal laptop remotely. His team was hiring rapidly, too rapidly. Within 3 months, he had 22 people crammed into a space designed for 30, but with infrastructure planned for his initial estimate of 15. The bandwidth started showing strain during peak hours. I sent him a polite email explaining that he was exceeding his contracted capacity and needed to upgrade to our enterprise package. His response came within minutes. Are you seriously trying to nickel and dime me? The internet should just work. That's what I'm paying you for. Fix it. I called Elena. We need to enforce the contract terms. Give him a warning first, she said. In writing. Keep it documented. So I sent a formal notice explaining that his usage was exceeding contracted limits and that service degradation would continue unless he upgraded. I included graphs showing bandwidth consumption, peak usage times, and capacity thresholds. I made it as clear and professional as possible. Trevor's response: this is unacceptable. I'm paying premium rent for premium services. Figure it out. He didn't upgrade. He just kept adding more employees. By month 5, he had 28 people. The network started experiencing regular slowdowns during business hours. His team complained. And Trevor blamed me. Our IT is garbage, he announced in a company-wide Slack channel that I'd been added to for support purposes. We're trying to build a world-class product, and we can't even load websites. Unacceptable. I scheduled a meeting with him, bringing detailed documentation of the infrastructure performance, the contracted limits, and the upgrade options. I even offered a discounted rate to help ease the transition. Trevor sat through my presentation with his arms crossed, barely paying attention. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. Here's what I don't get, Karen. You're supposed to be the infrastructure expert, right? But somehow, you can't handle a simple office setup. Maybe you're just not as good at this as you think you are. I kept my voice steady. The infrastructure is performing exactly as designed for the capacity you contracted. You've exceeded that capacity by nearly 85%. Physics doesn't care about. Don't give me excuses, he snapped. Every other building I've been in just works. You're making this complicated because you want more money. It's transparent. The contract is clear. The contract. That's all you talk about. He stood up. You know what? I don't have time for this. Just make it work, or I'll find someone who can. I left that meeting with a knot in my stomach. Elena tried to reassure me that we had everything documented, that the contract was solid, that Trevor was just posturing. But I started keeping more detailed records of every interaction, every service request, every complaint. Something told me I'd need them. Hashtag the escalation. Month 7 was when things really started falling apart, not because of infrastructure problems, but because Trevor's company was struggling. Momentum Labs had promised their investors a beta launch in 6 months. Month 8 arrived with no product. The developers were working insane hours, but from what I could see in the server logs, they were constantly rebuilding features instead of progressing. Classic startup death spiral. No clear vision, too much pivoting, burning through runway. Trevor started showing up later and later, often visibly hungover. The office vibe changed. People whispered. The ping-pong table sat unused. The free snack wall stopped being restocked. And Trevor started looking for someone to blame. It started with small comments in meetings with his team, meetings I could hear through the thin walls while I was running cable checks. If our infrastructure wasn't so unstable, we'd be further along. Hard to develop software when the network goes down every other day. It didn't. I had logs proving 99.8% uptime. Then he started copying investors on his complaints to me. Need you to explain to our backers why we're experiencing so many technical difficulties, one email read. They're concerned about our operational capabilities, and frankly, so am I. The technical difficulties he was referring to? One 15-minute planned maintenance window I'd announced 2 weeks in advance and scheduled for a Sunday morning. I responded professionally, attaching uptime reports and maintenance logs. His investor, thankfully, was technical enough to read between the lines and didn't respond. But Trevor was building a narrative. I could feel it. The real crisis came on a Wednesday morning in month 9. I was in the server room running routine maintenance when Elena called me, her voice tight with stress. You need to get to the 3rd floor. Now. Trevor's having a meltdown. I took the stairs 2 at a time. When I reached the 3rd floor, chaos. Trevor's entire team was standing in the common area, looking uncomfortable. Trevor himself was red-faced, practically shouting into his phone. I don't care what their excuses are. We've lost 3 hours of development time because the servers are down. This is completely unacceptable. He saw me and pointed. She's here. Let me call you back. He ended the call. Karen. My office. Now. I followed him into his glass-walled office, very aware that his entire team was watching. Do you have any idea, Trevor said, his voice shaking with rage, how much money you just cost me? I'm not sure what. The servers are down. We can't access any of our development environments. We have a demo with investors tomorrow, and my team can't work. I pulled out my phone and checked the monitoring dashboard. Everything showed green. Trevor, the servers are running normally. I'm looking at real-time stats right now. Then why can't anyone access them? Can I talk to your lead developer? He called out to a young guy named Marcus, who came in looking miserable. Tell her, Trevor demanded. Marcus explained. They tried to install a new development framework overnight, made changes to network configurations without consulting me, and essentially broken their own access to the cloud environment. It was entirely a problem of their own creation, and it would take me about 10 minutes to fix. I explained this as diplomatically as possible. Trevor's face went purple. So you're saying this is our fault? I'm saying there was a miscommunication about who handles network configuration changes. It's an easy fix. No. He cut me off. No, this is your fault. You should have systems in place to prevent this. You should have backups. You should have redundancy. That's literally your job. I do have backups and redundancy for infrastructure failures, I said carefully. But when your team makes unauthorized changes to... Unauthorized? We're paying for these servers. We can do whatever we want with them. You're paying for hosted infrastructure that I manage. The contract specifies. I am so sick, Trevor said, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous, of hearing about the contract. You hide behind paperwork because you can't actually do your job. You know what? You're fired. The words hung in the air. Behind him, through the glass wall, I could see his entire team had frozen, watching. You can't fire me, I said quietly. I don't work for you. You work in my building. I own this building. Well, co-own it. And you have a contract for services with my company, which you can terminate according to the terms outlined in Section 12, which requires 30 days written notice and settlement of any outstanding balances. Trevor's eyes narrowed. Get out. I'll fix the access issue first. No. You've done enough damage. Get out of my office, off my floor, and if I see you up here again, I'm calling the police for trespassing. My heart was hammering, but I kept my voice level. This is my building. You're a tenant. You don't have the authority to ban me from... Get out. His team flinched. I looked at Marcus, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. I'll be in my office if you need infrastructure support, I said to Marcus. Then I turned and walked out, my face burning, my hands shaking. Elena met me at the bottom of the stairs. She'd heard the shouting. What the hell happened? I told her. She immediately called our attorney. Here's what Trevor didn't understand about infrastructure. It's not just a service you can turn on and off like a light switch. It's a complex ecosystem that requires constant active management. After I left the third floor, I sent one email to Trevor and CC'd his lead developer Marcus. Per your direction, I am no longer providing active infrastructure management to Momentum Labs, effective immediately. Your current services will continue to run on existing configurations. However, please note, no monitoring, troubleshooting, or optimization. No security updates or patches. No backup management or verification. No capacity adjustments. No support for service requests. Any outages, security incidents, or data loss occurring after 10:47 a.m. today are outside my scope of responsibility. Your contracted services will remain available until the end of your current billing cycle unless you submit written termination per contract terms. For infrastructure support, you will need to engage alternative providers or manage systems internally. Best of luck. Elena read it and nodded grimly. Our attorney, Patricia, reviewed it and confirmed it protected us legally. I hit send. Then I did something I'd never had to do before. I removed all admin access to Momentum Labs infrastructure from my monitoring systems. I could no longer see their server health, their bandwidth usage, their security status. I was completely blind to their systems. And I waited. The first problem hit within 2 hours. Their automated backup system failed during its midday run. Normally, I would have received an alert and fixed it immediately. But I wasn't monitoring anymore. They wouldn't even know it failed unless they manually checked the logs. By end of day, their bandwidth had hit maximum capacity. During peak hours, their whole team was trying to work simultaneously. The network crawled. Normally, I would have load-balanced traffic, optimized routing, maybe temporarily allocated additional bandwidth. But I wasn't managing anymore. They were on autopilot, and autopilot only works until something breaks. I went home that night feeling sick to my stomach. Elena tried to reassure me that we'd done everything correctly, that Trevor had made his choice. But I'd built that infrastructure. I took pride in keeping things running smoothly. Watching it degrade, even deliberately, felt wrong. Day 2, Trevor tried to hire an outside IT consultant. I know because the consultant called me. Turned out we'd worked together on previous projects. "What's the situation?" he asked. Trevor's being weirdly vague about what he needs. I explained that I couldn't discuss client details, but that Trevor would need to provide him with all system access and documentation. "Which I assume he has," I added. Long silence. "Does he not have documentation?" "I had documentation. Extensive documentation. Schematics, configuration files, security protocols, access credentials, disaster recovery procedures. It was all stored in a secure repository that Trevor had never once asked to access." "You'd have to ask him," I said. The consultant worked with Trevor for 3 days before giving up. The problem wasn't technical complexity. The problem was that Trevor's team kept interfering, making changes without understanding the systems, essentially fighting against the consultant's attempts to stabilize things. Day 5, their primary development server crashed during a midnight automated update. It should have been a non-issue. I had redundant systems in place specifically for this scenario. But the redundancy system required active management to fail over. Without me monitoring and triggering the switch, their server just stayed down. Marcus tried to reach me at 6 a.m. I was awake. I'd barely slept, worried about exactly this scenario. But per Trevor's direction, I wasn't providing support. I sent Marcus a brief response. Per Trevor's directive from November 15th, I'm no longer providing infrastructure management to Momentum Labs. You'll need to resolve this internally or with an alternative provider. The server stayed down for 11 hours. An entire business day, lost. Elena fielded an angry call from Trevor that afternoon. "You're sabotaging us," he screamed. "This is retaliation." "You told Karen not to provide services," Elena said calmly. "She's complying with your directive. If you want to reinstate the infrastructure management contract, we can discuss that." "I'm not paying for services that don't work. The services work fine when actively managed. That's what you were paying for. That's what you terminated." Trevor hung up on her. Day 8, their internet went down completely. Not because of anything I did. A construction crew 3 blocks away had accidentally cut a fiber line. The entire neighborhood was affected. Normally, when this happened, I was alerted within seconds. I would immediately fail over to our backup fiber connection from a different provider, routing all traffic through redundant pathways. Total downtime for my clients, usually under 90 seconds. But I wasn't monitoring Momentum Labs anymore. They sat in complete internet blackout for 6 hours, until the fiber company completed repairs. 6 hours. No email. No development work. No communication with investors. Nothing. That evening, Trevor sent me a raging email with his investors CC'd. "Your gross negligence and incompetence has now cost us an entire day of productivity. We're exploring legal action for breach of contract and professional malpractice." I forwarded it to Patricia, our attorney. She drafted a response that I sent within the hour. "Mr. Walsh, on November 15th, you verbally terminated my services and ordered me off your floor. I documented this directive and confirmed that contracted services would continue without active management per your instruction. The fiber outage you experienced was caused by third-party construction damage and affected the entire neighborhood. My infrastructure includes redundant backup systems specifically designed for this scenario. However, these systems require active monitoring and management, services you explicitly terminated. Your contract with Morrison Tech Solutions includes detailed specifications for service levels, all of which require ongoing management. You have declined this management while continuing to utilize underlying infrastructure. If you wish to reinstate full infrastructure management services, please submit a written request and we can discuss terms. Otherwise, your services will continue in their current state until your contract term ends or you submit written termination per Section 12. Regards, Karen Morrison. Trevor didn't respond. But I heard through the grapevine, Marcus mentioned it to Elena in the elevator, that the investor demo had been postponed. Again. While Trevor's infrastructure crumbled, I was building a case. Patricia advised me to document everything. So I compiled 5 years of records, every email, every service request, every contract, every payment record, every instance of Trevor exceeding contracted resources, every warning I'd sent, every complaint he'd made. I created a timeline showing the progression of his company's problems, none of which correlated with infrastructure issues. His missed deadlines predated any service problems by months. His team's technical struggles were software development issues, not infrastructure. I pulled server logs showing exactly when his team had made unauthorized configuration changes. I documented every instance where they'd refused upgrades or ignored capacity warnings. And I found something interesting in my detailed records. Trevor hadn't paid his last 2 infrastructure invoices. He'd paid rent to Elena. He couldn't operate without the physical space. But my separate infrastructure bills, which he'd always been annoyed about, those had gone unpaid for 63 days. Patricia smiled when I showed her. That's leverage. Meanwhile, Trevor was apparently telling everyone who would listen that I was deliberately sabotaging his company. He posted on LinkedIn about vendor relationships gone wrong and the importance of having technical infrastructure you can trust. He didn't name me, but it was obvious. Several people in the local tech community reached out to ask what was happening. I kept my responses brief and professional. We had a contractual disagreement that we're working through. But Elena started hearing concerning things. Trevor was apparently meeting with other co-working spaces, looking to relocate. He was bad-mouthing Venture Loft to anyone who would listen. He was trying to recruit our other tenants to leave with him. He's trying to destroy our reputation, Elena said. We need to do something. We are doing something, I replied. We're documenting everything and letting him hang himself. Then, day 15 after the firing, Trevor made his biggest mistake. It came at 11 p.m. on a Friday night. I was actually relaxed for the first time in weeks, having dinner with friends, phone silenced. I saw the email at 1 a.m. when I got home. Karen. Effective immediately, I am formally terminating all infrastructure services with Morrison Tech Solutions. Per our contract, I am providing notice that we will cease using your services in 30 days. However, I am also formally notifying you that Momentum Labs will be pursuing legal action against you for 1. Breach of contract for failure to provide adequate infrastructure services. 2. Professional negligence resulting in business losses. 3. Intentional interference with business operations. 4. Defamation. Your email to my team implied we were responsible for infrastructure issues. Our attorney will be contacting you with a formal demand letter. We are seeking damages of $500,000 to cover lost productivity, delayed product launch, investor relationship damage, and reputational harm. Additionally, I am reporting your business practices to the Better Business Bureau and relevant professional organizations. You brought this on yourself. Trevor Walsh. I sat staring at my phone, my good mood evaporating. Then I forwarded it to Patricia with a note, we need to talk first thing Monday. But I also did something else. I compiled every single piece of documentation I had, years of emails, contracts, service logs, payment records, Trevor's complaints, my responses, the timeline of his company's problems, evidence of his non-payment, records of his team's unauthorized system changes. I organized it all into a comprehensive file. Dates, facts, evidence, irrefutable documentation. Because Trevor Walsh wanted to go to court? Fine. I'd bury him in evidence. Hashtag the counterclaim. Monday morning, Patricia and I met for 3 hours. She reviewed everything, making notes, occasionally whistling through her teeth. This is actually good, she finally said. He's given us clear grounds for a counterclaim. She drafted a response that was a thing of beauty. Mr. Walsh, we acknowledge receipt of your termination notice dated November 30th. Per contract terms, services will conclude on December 30th pending settlement of all outstanding invoices. Regarding your threatened legal action, please be advised. 1. Morrison Tech Solutions provided all contracted infrastructure services at or above specified service levels until you verbally terminated active management on November 15th. We have documented evidence of 99.8% uptime and rapid response to all legitimate service requests prior to your termination of management services. 2. Your claims of business losses are contradicted by documented evidence that Momentum Labs was experiencing operational difficulties, including missed deadlines and development delays, months before any infrastructure concerns were raised. These issues were rooted in software development and management problems, not infrastructure. 3. Your claim of intentional interference is contradicted by your own directive that I cease providing active management services. You cannot claim interference when you explicitly terminated the services you now claim were withheld. 4. The email you reference contained no defamatory statements, only factual observations about unauthorized system changes made by your team. Additionally, please be advised that Morrison Tech Solutions will be pursuing collection action for unpaid invoices totaling $8,400, now 73 days overdue. Should you proceed with litigation, we will file a counterclaim for 1. Payment of outstanding invoices plus late fees. 2. Breach of contract damages, early termination penalties per Section 12.3. 3. Legal fees incurred in defending against frivolous claims. 4. Defamation damages resulting from your public statements disparaging Morrison Tech Solutions. 5. Compensation for time and resources spent documenting your false claims. We have extensive documentation supporting our position and are prepared to defend our business reputation vigorously. We recommend you consult with qualified legal counsel before proceeding. Regards. Patricia Chen, attorney for Morrison Tech Solutions. We sent it certified mail. 3 days later, Patricia received a call from Trevor's attorney. She put it on speaker so I could hear. Listen, the attorney said, sounding tired. I've reviewed my client's documentation. Or rather, his lack of documentation. I've advised him that pursuing this case is inadvisable. Smart advice, Patricia replied. However, he's insisting on the termination of services and is refusing to pay the outstanding invoices. He claims the services were inadequate and therefore payment isn't warranted. The services were documented as exceeding SLA requirements until your client terminated active management. The invoices are for services rendered and accepted. Payment is legally required. Long pause. What would it take to settle this quietly? My client is willing to walk away from his damage claims if you'll waive the outstanding invoices. Patricia looked at me. I shook my head firmly. Our position is firm, Patricia said. Payment in full for services rendered, or we proceed with collection action. Your client's baseless legal threats don't entitle him to free services. Another pause. I'll communicate that to my client. Trevor didn't pay. Instead, he apparently told his attorney he was changing lawyers, which really meant he couldn't afford to keep fighting. So Patricia filed a small claims action for the unpaid invoices plus late fees and legal costs, $11,200 total. Trevor didn't show up to court. The judge ruled in our favor by default. Getting the money was harder. Trevor's company bank account was nearly empty. Turns out he'd been burning through investor money at an unsustainable rate. We ended up putting a lien on some of his personal assets, including his car. But the real victory came from somewhere else entirely. 2 weeks after the court ruling, Marcus reached out to me privately. We met at a coffee shop downtown. I need to tell you something, he said, looking exhausted. Trevor's been lying to investors. About everything. He explained that Trevor had been blaming infrastructure problems for missed deadlines that were really caused by poor planning and technical debt. He'd been showing investors impressive demos that were actually built by outside contractors, not his internal team. He'd been inflating user numbers and engagement metrics. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because Trevor tried to get me to testify that you'd sabotaged our systems. He wanted me to sign an affidavit saying you'd deliberately caused outages. Marcus looked miserable. I told him I wouldn't lie. He fired me yesterday. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be. That place was toxic. I should have left months ago. He pushed a USB drive across the table. This is copies of internal Slack messages, emails, and financial documents. Trevor was sloppy about security. I thought you should have them, just in case he tries to come after you again. I stared at the drive. This could get you in trouble. I don't care anymore. What he's doing is fraud. His investors deserve to know. I took the drive. After Marcus left, I sat there for a long time, thinking about what to do with the information. I couldn't just turn it over to Trevor's investors. That felt like overstepping. But Marcus was right. If Trevor was committing fraud, people deserved to know. I called Patricia. She advised me to sit on it unless Trevor made another move against me. You have it as insurance, she said. But initiating action based on leaked documents could complicate things legally. So I encrypted the drive and put it in my safe. I didn't have to wait long to use it. 3 weeks later, Elena received a certified letter from the Venture Loft landlord, not us, but the owner of the actual building that housed Venture Loft. We leased the space ourselves. The letter alleged that Venture Loft was operating an unsafe facility, citing infrastructure negligence and inadequate technical management that had endangered tenants. It demanded immediate remediation or termination of our lease. Elena called me, panicking. Where the hell did this come from? I knew immediately. Trevor. Sure enough, some digging revealed that Trevor had filed a complaint with the city building inspector and the fire marshal, claiming that our electrical systems and server equipment were safety hazards. He'd apparently contacted our landlord directly, painting a picture of a facility that was one equipment failure away from a disaster. It was all bullshit. Our systems were regularly inspected and certified. But the damage was done. Our landlord was now questioning our competence, and we were facing expensive inspections and potential legal action. Elena was ready to fight back directly. We need to destroy him. No, I said. We need to be smart. I called Marcus. Remember that information you gave me? I need to know. Does it show Trevor filing false complaints or making fraudulent statements? Oh yeah. He bragged about it in Slack. Said he was going to make Venture Loft pay for ruining his company. Can I use those messages? That's why I gave them to you. I compiled a new document. This one included 1. Evidence of Trevor's false complaints to regulatory agencies. 2. Screenshots of him bragging about filing those complaints. 3. Documentation of his actual infrastructure usage and problems. 4. His unpaid invoices and court judgments against him. 5. Evidence of his fraudulent statements to investors. 6. A timeline showing his company's problems predated any infrastructure issues. I sent it to 3 people, our landlord, the building inspector, and Trevor's primary investor. Then I waited. The building inspector cleared us within a week after reviewing our maintenance records and conducting a thorough inspection. Our systems were not only compliant but exceeded code requirements. The landlord called Elena to apologize for the concern and confirmed our lease was secure. And Trevor's investor? He called an emergency board meeting. I didn't find out the details until later, but apparently, the investor did his own investigation after receiving my documentation. He brought in a forensic accountant. The accountant found that Trevor had been misrepresenting the company's finances, inflating projections, and blaming external factors for internal failures. The board voted to remove Trevor as CEO. Momentum Labs itself didn't survive much longer. Without Trevor's salesmanship or deception, depending on your view, the company couldn't raise additional funding. They missed their next major deadline. Investors cut their losses. The company shut down 4 months after Trevor had fired me from providing infrastructure services. Venture Loft continued operating successfully. The publicity from Trevor's failed complaints actually helped us. Several potential tenants reached out after hearing we'd stood up to an abusive client. I implemented new policies, more thorough vetting of tenants, clearer communication about infrastructure contracts, and stricter enforcement of service terms. Elena and I also revised our lease agreements to include provisions about tenant conduct and false complaints. Marcus ended up working for one of our other tenants, a stable software company run by people who actually understood how to build products. He thanked me once for helping expose what Trevor had been doing. I was starting to think I was crazy, he admitted. Trevor was so convinced that everything was everyone else's fault. Trevor himself? I heard he tried to start another company, but word had spread in the investor community. Nobody would fund him. Last I heard, he was working a corporate job somewhere, no longer the entrepreneur he'd styled himself as. I ran into him once, about a year later, at a tech networking event. He saw me across the room and quickly looked away, then left within minutes. I didn't feel triumphant. Mostly, I felt tired. People ask me sometimes if I regret how things went down. The answer is no. Trevor didn't fire me because I was bad at my job. He fired me because he needed someone to blame for his failures. He thought I was powerless, just the IT person, easily replaced. He was wrong. When he tried to destroy me, I had everything I needed to defend myself. Ironclad contracts, comprehensive documentation, and self-respect. The real lesson? Know your value, protect your work, and never let anyone make you feel small for being good at what you do. Trevor tried to crush me for IT issues. Instead, his startup crumbled under his own incompetence. I didn't destroy him. He destroyed himself. I just refused to go down with him.